what is an MMORPG? Just what is it? Mass media online role playing game? Many men online role playing girls?
I think it's mass media online rug pulling game.
The reason I ask this question is because it is the most commonly asked or most common argument I tend to see in any MMORPG, either group. I mean, I made a mistake a few days ago. I went onto the MMORPG subreddit.
Oh boy!
And they love me.
I'm sure they do.
They hate me so much. The MMORPG subreddit is an excellent place to be if you love MMORPGs and you hate MMORPGs.
Yeah, you can't have a middle ground stance on it.
No, you've got to.
You have to be full left, full right on this.
Yeah, your game is amazing and everyone else's game is crap, and even your game is crap. And if someone else says their game is crap, your game is crapper. And if someone else says their game is good, your game is better. You are always playing both the best and worst, and in many ways only MMO at any given time. I went one step further than that. I joined the MMORPG subreddit Discord channel.
Oh.
Yeah, that's just a load of people arguing about when the next MMO is going to be released. They're like, when is the next good game coming out?
Probably never at this rate.
Yeah, it's just that forever. All it is that. And you could just suggest, work to game. Speak of the devil, thank you very much for the raid. We're talking about what is an MMORPG. And I've asked Reddit and they don't know. And I've asked the Discord and they don't know. So now I'm turning to Callum. Callum, define it for us. Come on.
I think it needs to be broken down into elements, right? Because...
Okay, we're getting complicated already. This is good.
So, MMO, RPG, two separate things. They can be defined in different ways. I would say an MMO is, typically a lot of players playing concurrently on an online game.
Now, let's break that down immediately, because the arguments, we're going to go through this with a fine-tooth comb, I swear to God, man.
Okay.
Massively. Define. Because some people have said to me that Guild Wars 1 is not an MMORPG, because you have hub cities that people connect to, but when you travel into the wilderness, it's always an instanced zone just for you or for your pre-established party that you create within the hub zone. So how many people do we have to be talking for it to be massive? RuneScape has server caps of, 2,000 per world?
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily about the per world. I think it's the overarching amount of people that you have a chance to interact with at any given time.
Okay.
So in World of Warcraft, we have the chance to interact with 40,000 people, because I believe that's a server cap. That is, without a doubt, a massively multiplayer online game. RuneScape, I would argue, definitely is, because you're not limited by any number, because you can swap out who's on what server. So you've got potentially millions.
You know what? I played RuneScape before I played World of Warcraft, and
me too.
That, to me, meant that servers, because I kind of established what it should be like from that, servers and worlds should always be hoppable between them.
Yeah.
And then when someone said to me, hey, come and play on my world in World of Warcraft, I got a bit confused. I'm like, what is that? Why can't we change? And then you just said the chance of people you have to interact with. This is something, and again, this is a tangent, but I think it's important. Some people refuse to start playing a dead game because there aren't enough people. But realistically, how many people can you actually interact with in a meaningful way? Because 1 million players, you're never going to meet them all. If a game has 1,000 players and you meet all of them, is that more relevant than 1 million that you couldn't?
And that's something that, again, ties into what you've just said, the world hopping. In RuneScape, if the player count drops by 70%, guess what? You're going to have more condensed worlds. If it drops, which it did in Warlords of Draenor, in WoW, if it drops 70%, which I think halfway through the expansion it had done, you're stuck in, like you say, a dead game. You don't have the chance now of merging and being with people.
I mean, New Worlds
so I think it really depends.
90%?
I think it was 94% last time I checked, and that was about 2 months ago. So it's horrendously low. And they're constantly merging servers, but they've got an issue because of things in the world that are dynamically different on each world. Well, when you merge them, which one do you favour?
Yeah, which one do you take?
Who controls the thing in that world?
And I think what we're ultimately going to discover is that MMORPG is far too broad a term.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to get to exactly why, because I want to go through every single letter of the acronym and every single reason behind it. But ultimately, I think it's like calling the genre shooter. If someone says, hey, do you like shooters? I'm like, well, you gave me a perfect example earlier, Cal. You said, what was it, Halo?
Halo and Call of Duty, even them as very similar games are so far apart from each other that you can't even really compare them.
And if you're talking about shooters, then Max Payne is also a shooter.
Yeah.
Splatoon is a shooter.
Yeah.
Portal is a shooter.
Yeah,
but you
Portal is a shooter.
You wouldn't put Splatoon... If someone walks up to you and says, hey, I like Splatoon, you wouldn't say, yeah, go and play Max Payne and Portal. It's not the same. It's too broad. So MMORPG is too broad a definition, but we're still going to break it down in the pursuit of content. Massively. Is that the amount of people that have played it before, that are playing it now, that can meet up,
I'm
together?
going to get us a definition of the word massive. How much is massive?
Because I had a guy on my Discord server a couple of months ago who, it was his personal belief that unless he could interact with 1 million people in a shared world, it wasn't massive. It was his belief that there was no game that actually, sated the massive label.
Yeah.
He believed that, there was no definition, no game that was massive enough. Is massive 1,000 players in total? Is it 1,000 players per world? Is it 1,000 players per shard? What is it?
This just made me realise something. Now, we used Minecraft earlier as a reference. Now, there's a server called Hypixel, which is like a very popular Minecraft server, and they had an MMO like shard on that server, and that had about 300 to 3,000 concurrent players, depending on time of year and whatnot.
Okay.
And I played on that for a short while because my little cousin asked me to, and I was like, okay, I'll show you how to do everything.
Yeah.
I would class that as an MMO.
Yeah.
The world was full, alive. There were tons of people everywhere. There was no instancing because it was a Minecraft server.
Yep.
I think it depends. It's a hard one to define because if I said to you, there's an MMO that I've made and it's got 3,000 players, you'd be like, well, that's not massive. But condense them into one world.
Yeah.
That's pretty damn massive.
Because people look at base numbers, and I think one of the worst things to happen to defining MMORPGs was World of Warcraft, not as a game, but as an outlying bit of data. Because as a game, it was fine. There's positives and negatives to its gameplay, but the fact that it boasted 6 million players at its height means it has set an almost unattainable benchmark.
Oh, God, yeah. I never see an MMO reaching that again.
12 million, sorry. Someone in the chat was like 12 million. So take away the 12 million benchmark of World of Warcraft and look at EverQuest, Ultima, RuneScape, stuff like that. The metrics of WoW have thrown off the average so much that people look at a game that has 100,000 players and say, dead game.
Yeah, I mean, look at Mortal Online 2. That had 20,000 players on launch, dead game.
Yeah.
But it's a small, tight-knit community of people that like that sort of game.
Yeah.
And it was never a big community.
Yeah.
It was big for the genre, but that to me is still a thriving MMO because it's so oddly specific that to garner a following that big, that's impressive.
I mean, how many people does Mortal Online 2 have playing on Steam right now? Can we just get a quick check? Cal, can you please check that for me? I played Mortal Online 2, the alpha version. They decided to send it to me for some reason. I said I'm not your guy for this because I'm more of a theme park dude, but I'll happily play it. And I could see the quality. I saw some issues, but I could see the quality, and I knew that I wasn't the demographic they were aiming for. 20,000 is more than enough. 20,000 is 5 RuneScape servers. Cal, you're giggling. Why are you giggling, Callum? How many people are playing Mortal Online 2 now?
So Mortal Online 2 may not have been the best example for this.
Go on.
Less than 500.
Okay, that's maybe... There's twice as many people watching this conversation live on Twitch than there are playing Mortal Online 2. But is that us instantly putting that number down? Because if someone had said, hey, there's 500 people playing this game right now, is that still good? Because we don't have a benchmark.
No, and we also don't know how many servers that's spread across. If that's on one server, that's awesome. That's more than enough players to interact with because their servers aren't very big, like map-wise. Their maps aren't massive. So, 500's pretty decent. I would say an MMO needs at least 500 players just to fill a server. Yeah. Fill a server with 500 players. You'll always be running into people. I've always done this in MMOs where if I've run around for more than 5 minutes and I haven't seen another player anywhere, that's when I start to get a bit worried about the future of the game.
Did we come to a number that we think massively should be represented by?
I think if you have the chance of interacting with 500 players at any given time in the world, I'd say that's massive.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree.